Yeah, the
Well,
meeting
good
is.
afternoon, everybody. I have the pleasure of introducing Sarah today. We have been emailing each other and on the phone a few times the past months or so. So she is head of the reference services at the North Dakota State Archives. She helps people do family research and other historical research. She provides tours and presentations like we'll receive today. She also collects oral history interviews for the Historical Society of the state of North Dakota. And as part of her job, you would think this would be obvious, but perhaps not. She's passionate about connecting people to the past via the diverse resources available at the state archives. So for this afternoon, her presentation will entail information about the state archives holdings for Scandinavian and Norwegian centered information, how to use the online resources at the archives, and how to search out history and family history information. And in particular, she has an interest in oral histories, and she does some of those collections herself. And so we'll have quite a varied topic of subject matter that Sarah will cover. And among them is something I have a particular interest in is the Depression era WPA data. And it includes the early pioneer interviews that were transcribed in the 30s. And it was just fascinating. I found one for one of my great-grandfathers. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Sarah Walker to our meeting today. And I sincerely have been looking forward to this presentation for a while. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexis. Well, thank you everybody for asking us here in North Dakota to be part of your presentation and for inviting me to join, and also for moving your meeting around for us, which was really appreciated on our end. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And get this going. If there are any issues as we move forward, please do let me know. Well,
you're not showing in slideshow mode yet.
Not yet. There.
Yeah.
Is it showing now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So as already has been said, we'll be talking about different resources that we have available here in North Dakota for researching Scandinavians and Norwegians at our North Dakota State Archives. If you have questions as we're going along, please feel free to ask them, and there should be some time at the end as well. So I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of history about our agency. We were established early on in the 1880s as a ladies' historical society. When I give tours, I always say this was a ladies' only historical society because men really weren't allowed to hold offices, at least at first. And they really wanted to preserve the history of the area. And in fact, really what they wanted to preserve were the archival collections, which were the two-dimensional paper items that really documented the history of the people settling here. That did change a little bit as the Historical Society changed. We became a state agency in about 1895. Our goal is to preserve the history of North Dakota and the region. We're really tied to South Dakota's history, of course. We were the Dakota Territory together. And so both states have this shared history, and we do have some records that relate to South Dakota. Our territorial records are shared in both locations. There is a deep connection there. Here at the Historical Society today, we have many different offices, including the State Archives, which is where I work, the State Museum, where there are the three-dimensional objects, the State Historic Preservation Office, which really deals with kind of the archaeological side of things. We also house the State Fossil Collection. here, which is cared for by a paleontology team. They're technically not under the umbrella of the State Historical Society, but they have an office here, and they're here all the time. Here in the archives, again, we collect manuscript series, which are records provided by private individuals and organizations, state records from state offices, local records which come from the county courthouses, and photo, film, and book collections. I'm sure that you have talked to other people from other archives, so have a good sense of that. All right, so Norwegians in North Dakota. Scandinavian heritage is a very large component of North Dakota's ethnic history. I actually do not have much Scandinavian background myself, surprise, surprise, but many people here do. So I found this graphic, and the dark areas on this show the settlement of Norwegians, either born Norwegian or descended from other Norwegians as they came to the state. This was, I believe, around 1910 that this graphic was compiling information. And you can see it's really spread out throughout the state, which isn't the case with other ethnic groups. We really see pockets here and there. And here, Scandinavians, especially Norwegians, really just came and settled wherever. We have actually some who are very well-known names like Sander Norheim, who was the father of modern skiing. And I've just recently learned quite a bit about him. He came to McHenry County, Kasper Øyman, I'm sorry, I don't speak Norwegian, and I know some of you do, so I apologize if I say anything not quite correctly, who was actually inducted into our North Dakota Hall of Fame. A Teddy Roosevelt Hall of Fame is what it's called. And he was an Olympic skier. He came to Minot, North Dakota. Hans Andersen Foss, who wrote The Cotter's Son, a story from Sigdal. He was an author, an editor, a temperance leader, interesting fellow, came to Minot as well. Chester Wrighton, who was born in North Dakota and founded the North Coast Fest. He also was inducted into our Teddy Roosevelt Hall of Fame, and that's where this painting came from. So, I mean, definitely, as well as these more famous people, and I just selected a few, we have lots and lots of stories from every person here. In the North Dakota State Archives, we really want to emphasize that this is the people's archives. So I highlight just a few who are a little better known, but every person's story is important here. And that leads us right into those WPA files. So part of the Workers' Progress Administration projects that were done during the Great Depression, the WPA came here like they did many other places, and they really did a lot of interesting work. They really were preserving a lot of the history of the state and every state that they went into. It allowed people to have jobs in a time that there weren't really a lot of jobs available. And they really worked closely with us. So we do have a lot of correspondence with the WPA workers. We have all of the work was collected here. And as part of this work, we had biographies that were done, history files on cities, history files on different areas within the state, church survey files, folklore files. So I just selected this from our website. You can see there's quite a breadth of information that was done. These are all part of the WPA, the Historical Data Project, being the biographies that we're going to talk about here in a second. So the WPA Pioneer Biographies, that's our series number. You don't need to know this. If you want to talk to us about this, we'll know this number. These files provide more than 5,000 brief biographies of North Dakotans. And some are very brief, and some are maybe 40 or 50 pages in length. So it really varies by size. Most of them contain a form page or a few form pages which were completed by the pioneer or a survey worker or the two of them together. And typically a second portion consisted of the sketches of what happened, their reminiscences, different notes that were taken maybe by the survey worker, sometimes newspaper clippings. We sometimes have photographs that accompany these. And they're really, honestly, fascinating. They did, at the time, limit the scope of the survey by defining a pioneer as a person who was born before 1870 and who lived in Dakota Territory prior to the division into North and South Dakota, which was in 1889, or like a first settler in a township. Some of these were completed after the death of the person, so family members would kind of come together and provide what they remembered based off of this person. A really good example is, I believe we have one on Hazel Miner, who was a young girl. You may not have heard of her. She's kind of a local, prominent, well-known person here. She saved her brother and sister from dying in a blizzard in 1920 by laying on top of them after their sleigh had gotten pulled away. There's a statue to her memory in Oliver County, and we appear to have one that was done on her in the 30s. She died in 1920. So as I said, files vary in content, and there's a lot of really different information in all of them. So here is an example. All of these have been microfilmed, and I will talk about this in a second, but you can actually access these in a variety of ways, including looking at the microfilm yourself. Pardon me. Either here in-house if you happen to come through North Dakota, or you actually can interlibrary loan our microfilm to your location. So all of the interviews are separated by a folder with the name of the person, its last name, comma, first name, middle name or initial will be listed, and then the county. And that's all the information that we need to find this for you. Here is one of the data sheets. This is one example. This is Ole Nesset. He was in Tioga, and that it shows you the address or date and place of death. So you'll kind of get a sense of whether or not the person has died already. This is very, very straightforward. They just went down and filled these forms out. If something didn't apply, they would just cross it out or skip it. It gives lots of great information about who family members are, children. In this example, it says star those who are married as far as the children listed, and one actually is starred, and it shows where they presently live or may have died at. And then it continues onward. Here is another example of a page that you might see in these WPA files. These are really quite interesting to me as well. So they basically show different pieces of the homestead or where a person might have lived. It'll give the township and range there on the side. It gives you the township name. They actually have drawn in a trail, and you'll see that they will draw in features sometimes on these. Not everybody necessarily has all of this information again, but and again, on the top, they've kind of like crossed off what isn't listed here. Then they have typically that biographical information. So here I just have a page on Ole Nesset. This is all Ole Nesset's file. And his file, I think, was about 20 to 30 pages in length, if I recall. So this is not just about him. And it also includes some very like actual stories, not just the very straightforward factual information. When Ole was a small boy, he spent about half of his young life with his grandparents. They lived about 6 miles away in the hills. Like, this is all listed right here in on this page. So you can actually look to see online If somebody that you are interested in or some family name that you are interested in is available through this website, the State's Biographical Index. And you can also check out the link that I have here. This exact link will take you right to the listing of all of the people who were interviewed during this particular project on our website. As I said before, you can also view them here and you can request the research. We can just provide it to you. You don't have to look at it yourself at all and try to find it in the reel. It's typically about a $5 to $10 charge. And what the variance is how many pages we're copying. We do try to get the best copy as possible that we can. We often, in the past, did it just from the microfilm. We do have the hard copies here as well. And so now lately we have been using the hard copies more so. It could go either way. You get the same information and we always try to get the best quality we can. You can use interlibrary loan. So to do that, you would just have to go through your local library and request WPA biography files for whatever county. The library can also contact us. And hopefully we have this actually on our list of things to scan sooner rather than later. So hopefully soon this will become a virtual resource and you would be able to just access this on our website. Hopefully that will be the case. Definitely you can at least access right now the index. However, like I said, there are so many different kinds of general files that you can look at through WPA. So one of the files I thought that might be of interest to you guys is the ethnic files. And I really find these fascinating. They did a very similar thing. They didn't use form pages for this, but they went around and interviewed people who were specific to different ethnic groups. Some who were even just like born in America and moved to North Dakota. We have from all across the board, different ethnic groups that came here, and Norwegians were one of the groups that were interviewed for this project as well. So I just accidentally skipped by the names there, but I can provide that to you guys. We have a link again directly on our webpage, which we'll check out here before the end of this this presentation. So again, here is the first page of an example of what you would see. This is the worker who compiled this is that Leona Gaudier, and you'll see her name as it pops up a few times. This particular section I was looking at were all from Williams County, which is up in the kind of northwestern portion of the state, if you're not familiar with North Dakota, right around Williston. So this person was born in Norway. We called it Nordre Odalen, again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing, and station were Sander, 13th February, 1888. There was 8 of us kids. This wasn't corrected for grammar. This is basically just as they said it. I was the 4th one. We lived on a small place. Well, you know, there were a big family there, and my father, he worked on farm, looking after cattle and doing milking and things like that. So you also can kind of get a sense of how they spoke. I really love these files. They're so interesting. They're typically quite a bit shorter, but they're so interesting. So this particular file also had a note where the woman who did this interview, the Leona, wrote, Mrs. A's knows nothing about the government aid for farmers. They had already left the farm before these setups were established. She seems little inclined to talk about her hardships on the farm, simply says she had a hard time ever since she came to this country and appears quite discouraged. So it's very real with what is stated on here. Another example from this file, this is E.E. Anderson. He was in Wild Rose. Again, this is in Williams County. And he talks about being born in Fredrikstad, Norway in 1890. My father was not a wealthy man, but had the means of a comfortable living. The city had a population of about 30,000. It was a seaport and a good industrial center. I went through the common school, which consisted of 7 grades. He talks about everything before, and he will talk about what happened after coming to North Dakota as well in this. And then a final one, the field worker here is Joseph Hedlund, and the informant is Adolf Arneson, also from Wild Rose. This person was born near Kongsvinger, Norway in 1880. And so there are a lot of really interesting and very clear, you can see this is a really clear copy, interesting biographies that are covered in these ethnic group files. So we talked a little bit about photos already. There's one collection that we have, collection 75. It has 1,189 photographs that correspond to the historical biographies. Not many of these are scanned. Some of them are. So here is one that is scanned. And this guy, his horse is Rainbow, the great wild pinto stallion, still to be handled with care. Here, Mr. George Foyt, his master, pets him and gradually gets the rope hack more on him. It's a really great photo. These photos really show a lot of life around North Dakota, so it's not just like head and shoulders shots. This is a favorite photo of mine. We had it on display recently, and it is a listing of, or it obviously shows a girls band marching down the street in a parade. It's actually honoring the Crown Prince of Norway, who was coming through North Dakota at that time, Crown Prince Olaf. And then we have this one, which is related to a different series, also related to WPA. And I just love this guy standing in the middle of his field. So some of them have cut lines. Some of the cut lines were provided by the people who were workers at that time. And some of them were also just provided the information of what was going on. All right. So we have biographies in all sorts of areas. The next best source, if you're just looking for that biographical information, is County Histories. I was talking about this with one of your members just a little bit ago, who had her volume of the beach, 100 Years of Beach, North Dakota. We have county history books here from every county, from most cities. And they typically will contain those biographies of people in the area, as well as general information about the history of the towns. You can also look for this on the same biographical index on our website that I mentioned earlier, which I will show you. I just realized that I will, I don't think that clicked over, but I will show you this afterwards, because I just realized I didn't list out the whole address there for you. So some are scanned and available online. This website, Digital Horizons, contains scanned books. So these are free and available completely in whole on this particular site. And not all of the books are scanned, but a really good chunk of them are. It happened through the state library, which is an agency that's kind of a sister agency to us, but is not a part of us. We have library collections, but we are not the state library. We are the state archives. So naturalization records, I'm sure that many or all of you are familiar with these, and they are such a great resource for us here in this area, because so many people came here and settled here so that they could homestead or get land, and they had to be naturalized first if they weren't born in America. So this is really excellent documentation for many of the people coming here, especially coming here directly from another country. We house naturalization records from counties across the state from around the 1950s and earlier. After that, there are federal records. We have first and second papers specifically. There are third papers that we do not have in our collections. So if you're looking for those third papers, you would have to go elsewhere, again, probably a federal agency.
Sarah, I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
On the naturalization records, where your third bullet says that the women and children would be under the husband or the father, does that
Yeah.
mean there is a second page to the husband's like naturalization petition? Or because I can find my great-grandfather's,
Yes.
but I can't find his wife.
Yes. No, they did not. They did not have, especially the earlier the record was, they did not have any additional information. It was just the head of household was naturalized and thus the person underneath them was.
Oh, just automatically.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for clarifying because it was driving me crazy. I was looking everywhere. Okay.
I understand we get a lot of requests for that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So along with that, something that we've also found in our state, and I would not be surprised if this was the case in other states, is sometimes only first papers were filed for some people who were not minors. Minors typically only had to file the first papers, and then they didn't really have to do anything else. They were good to go with the laws at the time. People who were not minors, we were only finding first papers for and not second papers. And then one of our staff found a note that was included with some of these records. And they said this person was naturalized automatically when North Dakota became a state. So there are many different rules that changed with naturalization records. And we find so many different things that happen. But typically, especially with these early ones, it's rare to find women and children listed unless they were here on their own. And if they were naturalized, started the process prior to statehood, then they were kind of grandfathered into being a citizen at times, at least.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so typically first and second papers are available and included in orders that we do. Again, we can provide these as research requests for a fee, typically $5 a name. And that will contain first and second papers that we would send to you. But this depends on many factors. And sometimes we only have one paper, and sometimes that single paper is from 1888 and has almost no information on it, unfortunately. These remain in-house, but can be ordered or obtained via ILL. And again, we are hoping to have these scanned, and they may be on our website in the future. So here's hoping. We would love that. So here is an example of an early naturalization record, one of the early ones I've been talking about. There's actually a Selena Oliver underneath here, but we're going to focus in on Peter. And he is also from Norway. He was born about 1812. And he landed in Port Huron on or about the month of August in the year 1880. Oh my goodness. 3. And that it is his bona fide intention to become a citizen. It shows that he renounces the King of Norway and Sweden, which is pretty typical for these records. And then it has his signature. So this is, I would say, a pretty lucky early record. Sometimes you'll see even less information on these. Sometimes the information wasn't fully filled out. Partly, we know that not everybody came speaking English and understood everything. Sometimes you'll see a signature is just an X. Sometimes we're pretty sure the clerks helped them write their signature. You can see that it's maybe similar handwriting. This is obviously not. So Peter did sign this himself, and it's dated. And I didn't look to see if we had a second record for him. it's possible we wouldn't. We became a state in 1889. He did this in 1884 slash 83 as listed above. And so he may not have actually had to finish the process. He may have just finished the process in time to have done it before we became a state as well, because it was typically about 5 years later that they would go back. Sometimes we'll see that they moved around to a different county, so they're not always in the same area. Sometimes the papers are grouped and sometimes they aren't. So our second papers, even the earlier ones, although not always, and the later papers contain much more information. So here is an example, which is actually a woman, Laura Knudsen. And this is all, again, from our microfilm. Again, we have these records in-house. We typically don't pull the records in-house unless the microfilm is bad or illegible. They're usually pretty clear. But because of that, the way that the records look is kind of a little funky. This is because the way that it's microfilmed, it's basically just a photo taken straight down. And so they photographed it, turned the page, photographed it. And when you have these little pieces of paper, like the one that is right here on top, it ends up kind of looking like the naturalization records are doubled over and over. That's actually not the case. So this is the first paper, first part of this particular naturalization that was done. And this is 1924. It's already looking much better. This is her certificate of arrival. She came to Ellis Island in 1914. Here's part of the actual paper that was covering up. I didn't copy the whole thing here for you to see, but you can see how much more information this is. It shows where they're living. It lists children. Her husband's name is Anton Marinus Nielsen. He was born on the 12th day of April 1894. Sometimes we've even seen a listing where it will say husband is deceased or something like that in the naturalization record. We've seen where women will take on the second papers, maybe even under their husband's name if the husband is deceased. That's kind of an interesting thing that happens on occasion. But there's just so much more information that's here. Usually there's some documentation about where they landed, how they got here, a little bit in some way. Again, her signature is there at the bottom. And then it continues. Although this page doesn't have as much information, there actually is still more information here. And I'm just doing a quick search down. I don't see it here, but a lot of the time you'll see it on these second papers, probably on the page we were just on. You see, I don't know if I copied it. They'll list kind of at the bottom here. It doesn't look like it's filled in. They'll list if there was a declaration of intention on the second papers that you can sometimes then go back and find. Sometimes you'll discover through that second set of papers that they started the process in Wisconsin or Minnesota or, you know, some other location. So that's worth checking out. Yeah, so naturalization records are super, super helpful for that sort of information, and we do have a very broad spectrum of them. So we're going to jump into oral histories. Does anybody else have any questions on anything I've covered so far?
I think it's kind of funny that my wife's cousin married a Nielsen from Rugby, North Dakota, and I bet they're the same family.
It could easily be the same family. I wondered if I would grab something that would be linked to somebody in the group.
That's funny.
All right. So, bicentennial oral histories. You know, the WPA files that we've talked about are essentially the same thing. They're oral histories, but they were written down rather than recorded in cassette or video because they didn't have that technology. This particular oral history collection was done in the 1970s. We had actually just like a single person who went around and collected about 1,200 audio cassettes of interviews with people across the state. They did something similar where they looked for the old timers, the people who had been there for a while. Again, this collection includes some photographs, partial or occasionally full transcripts. I said photographs twice. And they're available to order for a fee, or you can come in and listen to them in person. We charge a $10 delivery fee to send you the file, and then you just have it. You download it and you have it, so you can listen to it. I can't tell you that all of them are in the best of shape, but they are completely digitized in this particular collection. That is something that I did a long time ago, and this particular link will take you right to the inventory of all the people who were interviewed. While I was digitizing this, I found an interview that was done with the wife of the doctor who delivered my mom. So you never know what kind of links you're going to find, and you can actually even search by county. So if you know what county your family settled in and just want to see if they talk about anybody, you could investigate all of them. I don't know that you'd exactly want to order all of them, but you might just take a look and see if you can see some connections. So here's an example from our website of a listing. This is from Nelson County, and you can see this is how they're all listed out. It tells you actually what city they're from. And this is an example, which is also listed on the page, of a partial transcription. It was just enough so that you knew kind of what was happening in the file. Most of them are not fully transcribed, but there are a few that are. And I absolutely suggest people look at these for pretty much every topic of interest that they're researching. As you can see here, if you even just do a Control F search on the page, you can find, and I'm sorry, you'll see some language. I just noted something myself that it's not exactly PC anymore, and we're trying to correct that. But there's just every topic that you can think of. Now, this one, I found this particular person just by searching for Norwegian, and this person married a woman from Minnesota who is Norwegian. And then there's always some sort of comment, or there's typically a comment. This interview tells much about the early settlers of the area and farming interests. He is from Irish descent, and the interviewer thought he was pleasant to listen to. The photos that are provided, again, are fascinating. Not every collection has a photo. I didn't see one for that particular transcription we looked at. This is just members of the Norwegian Lutheran Church in Fillmore, North Dakota. We don't have a date on it. There are a lot of photos that you can search on this website, which I'll pull up again near the end. Another oral history collection that we have, which is going to be a lot less about how they maybe got to this area, but which will still have a lot of very interesting stories that can help when doing your family history research, is this from the Veterans History Project. This collection was done in the 2000s, the early 2000s, about 2003 to 2007. It was actually done across the country, and there probably were some done in your area as well. Many of these were then also sent off to the Library of Congress, so you can see the listing. If you're searching their site, it'll refer you back to us typically. We have an extensive list of veterans that were interviewed, and we actually continue to interview veterans after 2007. And this is actually how I got my start in doing oral history. Is I started working with the Veterans History Project when I started here in 2008. It actually covers World War I to current conflicts. Again, some were done after the death of somebody. We had one person who kept giving us information on people who had served but weren't necessarily around anymore. He just wanted to collect that history. So that's part of that as well. is paper, audio, video. And now, one of our current ongoing oral history collections that I'm involved with is our Flicker Tales of North Dakota. This is an ongoing and changing short form oral history collection. We have various stories relating to different culture and history in North Dakota. Interviews can occur all across the world. So Joel, you and I were talking about the fact that you lived in the Midwest early on. If we had a topic that was of interest to you, we could do an interview. It's about 30 minutes or less. I've interviewed people all over the country. Topics we've covered so far have included food traditions, the 1997 flood that affected Grand Forks and Fargo, the eastern part of the state, Halloween traditions, Class B basketball in the state, the 150th anniversary of the city of Bismarck, and other topics. We're continuing to move forward with this. Like I said, they're typically about 30 minutes or less. They're very focused on these topics. They've been really fun to do. Sometimes we get photos, video, books offered with the interview. And that's a collection that is just kind of ongoing. So we have different manuscript collections as well that would cover all sorts of different topics. Here's a quick look at something from our website. Our website's not entirely up to date. Our manuscripts are donated by the private individuals or organizations that can really detail the history of life in North Dakota. I would suggest going to our website to look at this. And also it's worth checking out WorldCat through our website, which will really allow you to do some searching through our catalog system. I just checked the time and I see we're getting kind of late. Am I okay? Should I zoom forward?
Yeah. Yes.
We're doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. Okay, so photograph collections. Photo book reads and displays low-res images online. So if you go to this website, you will completely access everything that we have that is scanned and available to view. As we scan more items, it will go up on photo book. There are also manuscript pages, state records that are scanned that read through this site as well. But it's really great to search for photos, keyword searchable, everything we have that is scanned. We have more that are not scanned, but everything we have that is scanned is on this site. Digital Horizons, I've talked about this already, holds images, books, collections from our organizations and other collections. It's also word searchable. Fewer items of ours are available here, but because it has collections from other organizations, you'll also get more to search. And this is the site that holds the scans of the county history books, which was done through the state library. So completely worth checking out. We have lots of genealogy collections as well. I think that's something that people don't always realize. These are sometimes manuscript collections. They're sometimes book collections. And if you look on WorldCat on our website and just search either generally genealogy, which will give you usually more general things to look at, or specific names, you might find that there is some family history related to your family that's been kept here. And then, of course, newspapers. So I'm just kind of throwing some websites at you really quickly here near the end. So Chronicling America is through the Library of Congress. We have papers on here. The Bismarck Tribune, we have from its start to 1938. All other papers, we only have 1925 and earlier. Not as many papers are on this site, but Advantage Archives below that, we are continuing to add to this website. We have papers from the 2000s on here. These are free to use, completely free to use, these websites, and they're keyword searchable. And as I always tell people, even if the newspaper you're looking for isn't on here, it is worth checking out and trying your search, because papers will pick up, you know, papers were so newsy. They wanted to pick up what was going on in other communities. So we have definitely found listings of things in other communities from these pages. And then you can always look at just what other papers we have. Not everything is just free to use and out there, but you can interlibrary loan almost all of our newspapers. And this is an index that you can check to see what titles we have and what dates we have. Here is a quick picture. I did just a few quick searches. This is from Chronicling America. The Ward County Independent is one of my favorite newspapers to talk about. It was so newsy and so nosy that it would always look into different topics of different areas and covered a broad spectrum. This is also Chronicling America. And I obviously just did a search for Norwegian just to see what would pop up. This is Advantage Archives, so it looks a little bit different. It is a little bit different. Same thing. I was able to find lots of different articles with a very, very general search. I don't know why it only found Norwegia. I did search Norwegian, but it got me to what I wanted to look at. So I am going to show you our website really quickly, but before I do want to pop this screen up. Please feel free to contact us. Archives@nd.gov is our general email. My email is smwalker@nd.gov. My name is Sarah Walker. Please feel free to contact me there. And Joel and Alexis have that info, and you guys can certainly feel free to hand it out.
Would you mind sending us your PowerPoint so we can send this?
Absolutely. Yep. The archives phone numbers are listed here. Our website is history.nd.gov, and then I have our open hours. So I do want to quickly show you. I'll just go right here. Our website. And I'm starting us off really quickly on, actually, this is the state biography index that I did not include the link of, but you can click through on the PowerPoint. So you could just put in any last name and search. You don't have to put in a first name. And you can see everything that pops up over here. I didn't talk about all of these resources. There are more resources that will show. Many of these are in-house. The roster of the men and women who served in the Army or Naval Service is actually on Ancestry.com. This is a book that we have in-house here that has a lot of biographies in it. Who's Who in North Dakota. We have a few of these that pop up. But also there are many, like this is the Ashley Centennial, the Galesburg Centennial. The necrology was done. This is a manuscript collection. Basically, it's columns of newspapers, obituaries that somebody collected and then donated to us. So it does pick up on various things. It'll also pick up on WPA's files if they're in here. So this is a good all-encompassing, here is one, in fact, no relation to me, but here's a pioneer biography file for this person. And that's kind of what it looks like. So this is our website. This is history.nd.gov. Click on archives, and this takes you to the archives portion of the site. We are hoping to get our website changed at some point in the near future. It's been in process for a number of years, so this could change at some point. And if you have questions, just email me. But for now, if you hover over here, archives holdings, here are manuscript collections. We can just go and search by topic. Here's family and local history. Archives holdings again. You can hover over and go to local government records. So these again are from the county courthouses and are such a rich genealogical resource. You can select any county that you want. Every county has given us different kinds of things. Some of them are restricted by law, but we try to make it as available as possible. And you can see right here the sorts of items we have. Marriage records, we have probate records, wills, court journals, criminal case files, naturalization records. The Register of Coroners Inquests is probably restricted, but there is a lot of information we can still provide off of that. So the local records are absolutely worth checking out. We have links, although it doesn't show here. This is our link to WorldCat that will take you just to our particular collections. Here is Digital Horizons and Photo Book. And then there are some other genealogy resources you can use, like here's the birth, death, marriage, and divorce index. So you can actually just search for those dates if they're listed in here. One quick thing about that, in North Dakota, birth records are restricted for 125 years. So only those that are older than 125 years from today are going to show in the birth records. Death records, we can't show anything that's happened within the past year. But if you do a search, please do keep this format, year, month, day, year, month, day, when you do a search with the range. Otherwise, it messes up the search. We can't fix that yet. And then, of course, I already provided you with these links, but if you go to newspapers, you can springboard off of all of these links to go to those particular sites I've already provided. So that's just a very quick overview of our website. And I think we've probably gone over the time you've allotted for me, but are there any other questions that I can answer for you guys?
I was curious about the manuscript collection. If you could
Yes.
elaborate just a little bit on what's actually considered a manuscript. I mean, is that a report? Is that a thesis?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, it's something that's donated to us by a private individual or organization. And so it's really all encompassing. And what I always tell my school kids is this is going to be potentially like business papers, but it could also be like your grandmother's diary. So it really is going to highlight various things. And I can really quickly share my screen again.
That would be great.
And show you the manuscript page.
Because I was trying to get a sense of what pioneer farming was like, you know, when they first arrived and there were no trees and you had to find shelter and then they had to break ground and they had to still eat, you know, and
Yes.
find water and yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to click on agriculture because this is just sort of by topic. Another way you could search this is just to go in this lower search bar right here and type in whatever your search is. Over here are all of the manuscripts by subject. Not all of, well, up to a point. Like I said, it's not 100% up to date.
Okay.
So if it's hyperlinked, you can actually click on it and it will tell you this particular collection is 22.5 feet. So it's about 23 boxes.
Holy moly.
This includes journals, ledgers, contracts, deeds, abstracts, correspondence, and photographs relating to the land and cattle operation in Dickey County. The photo collection has some that were separated out. That's listed here. There was a transfer. There's a sketch on the person whose collection this was, and then there's an inventory of the bound volumes below.
Okay. All right.
So you could actually look and say, like, I'm interested in 1902 to 1907, what's in this journal? And while it's a lot harder for you guys to access this by distance because of what they are, we can't wholesale copy everything in here. You can really focus in, and we do provide scans from collections. We do charge a fee for it, of course, but we do provide scans for people all the time.
And would that be under the sort of the rubric of research support? Like if someone called the state archives and said, could you look in this place for me? Does your staff charge like by the half hour, by the hour or something?
Yep. So something like this, we would probably charge you a fee for an hour's worth of research for however many hours it takes. And we charge $25 an hour. And that's basically kind of more of a scanning fee. We don't necessarily look for specifics within, depending on what you're looking for. You can tell us your specific search that you're looking for.
Right.
If you're looking for an obituary, we would go just to the obituary. But if you're looking to see what sort of information is there, we
Mm,
would scan a journal for like a month or something, however it might be set up. And then that would be what we would provide you.
okay. All
Does
right.
that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So let's just also click into this Christian Westergaard. This is just going to be a little different than what we just looked at, since that was all about cattle. So this particular collection, he's from Denmark. This is correspondence, notebooks, account books, scrapbooks relating to farming and family affairs. So like there might be some really cool photos that would actually be related to this person's family, and that might be actually of interest to a researcher. There's lots of information. Sometimes we have lots of information, and sometimes we have less information about some of the donors. And this is separated again. So if you come down, the first box holds letters from Jens Westergaard. That might be more of interest. We definitely have scanned, and this is box 1, folder 1. If you want to scan a folder 1, we definitely scan folders from boxes all the time. That's more what would be considered our $25 an hour research fee.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Hmm.
Cool. Well, I know I've occupied most of the question time, but I suspect there could be other genealogy interest group folks that would have questions.
Yeah.
Be quiet.
I have a inquiry. I don't know if it's specific to genealogy, but I was wondering if you knew the history of the Bonanza farms, or if there are resources that kind of describe how they came to be and how they ran and then how they ultimately went away.
Yeah, there are resources that we have. In fact, one of our former governors, his family were Bonanza farmers. It was more on the eastern side of the state, and I will tell you, it's not a topic of which I have like a ton of knowledge, just sort of a very general knowledge base. But I am certainly able to send some resources to you to look at if that's something that you're interested in. And I would encourage you to just like send me an email so that I can send those to you.
Sure, that's fine. Thanks.
There's
Yeah.
also a really good book, Alan, called The History of North Dakota, by the man whose name
Elwood
is on the
Robinson.
Big Book Archive in Grand Forks, Elwin Robinson, and he has many chapters all about farming and the upsurge of the huge farms, and he talks about it there in one of the early chapters.
Yeah, that's considered one of our major books on North Dakota history that we refer to people. So,
Okay, thanks.
I
yeah,
have a quick question.
yeah.
Do you have any idea or background on why North Dakota on their death certificates block the cause of death, even though maybe the person died over 100 years ago?
Yeah, it's state law. We can't provide the cause of death. Go to the newspaper. I mean, the newspaper probably told you. I know, even though it has been many years that have passed, we're just unable to provide that information in an official document. However, I have gone to the newspaper, like I said, and I have found like detailed discussion of somebody dying from heart attacks or like some other horrific disease. So often that is in those early papers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know it's difficult, especially when that's when you're trying to figure out.
Would those records exist at a local level, like the death certificate and cause of death?
I'm sorry, I missed part of what you said.
Would those records, the death certificate, exist at a local level, like at a county level?
Right, yes. Those would be actually what we would have, and we also can't provide that if we have them at all. It's just the law. Yeah,
But it exists on the records. You can't provide it though.
yeah,
Okay.
correct.
So the-
Well, for the most part, there are always records where it's not listed. But again, I strongly recommend the papers.
Going
Can
back
you
to
hear me,
Ellen-
Sarah?
I can. I'm sorry, Sydney, did you have another comment?
Two, and I'll just step back and let somebody else ask, if you've got
Sure.
time, I'll ask.
Okay, sorry, the other person who just asked?
Yeah, can you hear me, Sarah?
I can, yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm not that good with the Zoom stuff, but for two things. One, you're in Bismarck, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I thought so, and just want to confirm that. Second thing, I remember both my parents grew up in Ramsey County,
Mhm.
North Dakota, and they have two huge books that are like little biographies of all the families in Ramsey County. And I assume that is something that you would have there at the archives?
Probably. We don't have every book. But I also don't really know just by description. But I would say it's likely. Are they 2 volumes of the same book?
No, they look identical from the outside, but they're large books, look like what you might call a coffee table book. I mean, they're just pretty big, but they're different. They're different. The inside contains different information. Just sort of snapshots of every family, or at least most of the families in Ramsey County.
Okay. It sounds like some books I have seen that I'm guessing that might be what it is, but I couldn't say for sure without like having the title and looking in our system.
Right. Right.
I should say, it's kind of hard to showcase how much we actually have at a distance like this. We have about 8 miles of collections in our holdings. We have about 10% of our photos scanned. We estimate we have about 2 million photographs in different forms. So, I mean, we're talking about 200,000-ish scanned, but like definitely not the full holdings. So we don't always know exact specifics. Sometimes we have to like look into it. But what you're describing does sound like something that I have used and that we have. So I'm guessing that we have that particular item.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah, could you give us your email address again, and also the email address of the other person that you said we could contact about donating materials?
Yeah, I would say just email me and I'll forward you to
Okay, and what is your address again? It's
S as in Sarah, M
SM Walker.
at nd.gov.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sarah?
Yes, I have a question or two.
Yeah.
In terms of indexing, Alan, for instance, was talking about the Bonanza farms. And I know that in Fargo, there's a Bonanza museum. Is there any cross indexing between what you have and some other North Dakota archives?
Really good question. Digital Horizons is going to be really useful in that regard because actually the Institute for Regional Studies has a lot of info on there, Prairie Public, NDSU, well, the Institute for Regional Studies, I already said that, Williston College, some of the local historical societies all have collections on there. But there is no larger database except for if everybody else has their info on WorldCat. That's probably the next place I'd refer you to.
So then back to your local indexing. If I were to put in a name on that search that you had at the top right, it looked like just a blank search. would that search not only biographies and the manuscripts, or would you have to go into the manuscript separately?
So that searches generally what is on our website, but not necessarily like the biographical information. For that, I would really suggest going right to those links I provided, like for the WPA files, or using that state's biographical index. I should have also shown you, but you can skip right from that over to the naturalization index. I can show you that really quickly. Sorry that I'm thinking of this. Okay. So if you go to the, oh, I have it open here. To the biographical index again. And I want to just move this bar that's blocking me. There we go. Okay. So if you go here over on the side, you can see there's naturalizations. If you click on that, you can also search naturalization records. But if you search the biography index here, I can type in Walker again, and you can see all of these items. This is actually, although these are mostly our resources, this is not hosted on our website. We link to it. NDSU actually is hosting this. So if you search our website, you will not find any of this. You have to go to this page.
Okay.
If I go to our website here and go to that top corner, I'll search my name again. And it will take me to a few different search results. Careful, because sometimes they pop ads up on top that are not at all related to us. But let's say this person is something I'm interested in. I can click on it and it will take me right here. I can actually still just go back to that search because it pops me into a new window. It may show me some photographs because we also inventory our photographs by collection. So this is a really good way to search for photos that maybe are not scanned, because not all of them are. But you won't be able to actually look at it unless you reach out to us. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
I just wanted to say thanks for coming out in some pretty formidable weather, Sarah.
No, not a problem at all. A lot easier for me to get to you guys than for you to get to me right now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was great.
Oh, wonderful. I'm
Really?
so glad.
Very, very impressive.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please feel free to reach out at any time, guys. And thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Having a good Saturday afternoon.
Thank you to you as well.
Be warm.
You guys too.
Bye-bye.
All right. And then should I just email Joel, you and Alexis that
Yes.
PowerPoint? Okay.
That'd be great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys.
My
Thank you very much.
just about my only connection to North Dakota. I was born in South Dakota, but my mother taught at the North Dakota School for the Deaf when she first came out of college.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how many people are connected just through teaching, that somebody having a job of teaching somewhere. So yeah, that's pretty cool though.
She didn't last in North Dakota weather very long.
It's not always this bad, but it's kind of bad right now. All right. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Yep.
So, Tona, I sent you kind of a cryptic email. Hopefully this whole thing works out. I was just being kind of funny, clever, and I don't know. I haven't learned the tricks of sending things from here to there. So
The post is not easy anymore.
no.
It will be okay.
It's kind of funny. My wife is from North Dakota, and whenever we're in public or traveling anywhere, she runs into people that she knows directly or somebody who knows somebody or something like that. And yet I grew up in suburbia, St. Paul, Minnesota. I never run into anyone, not even a high school classmate. But and she's from Larimore. I mean, a little town in North Dakota, and she keeps running into people that she knows. There's something, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I've been surprised at how many people in the Washington DC area came from my little hometown of 1,500 people in Western North Dakota.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It must be one of those places everyone's from.
yeah.
That's
That we all leave, that's the thing.
that's what we used to say in Iowa. It's a good place to be from, away from.
I know a lot of people from Iowa too.
Yeah. We next month, Alan will speak next month, I think, and but then in March we have a guy who wrote a 3-volume, maybe now a 4-volume set on Norwegians in Iowa.
Oh, he has 3 printed
Oh yeah,
already? That guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that'll be good.
Oh, that will be interesting because my great-grandfather came from Scotland and he moved to Iowa. He married a Norwegian woman. So I don't know if that book will include her family, but it'll be interesting to find out.
Possible, yeah, and Rhoda's speaking to us as well, so we're really pleased about that.
Where in what were their names, Rhoda?
Oh, my great-grandmother's name in America was spelled R-E-M-A, Rima. In Norway, it was R-I-M-E, the surname.
Where in Iowa did they go?
Well, Alameda County is in the northeastern corner.
Oh, okay.
And Waukon is the nearest town, larger city. Some smaller towns. They were farmers, so they were out in the country.
Not far from Decorah.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, we went to the Vesterheim. We had a family reunion there in 2003 with all the descendants of my, well, those I could contact from my great-grandfather. He had 6 children. My grandmother was one. And she had moved to Montana, so most of the relatives